Day Mentor with Jen. I'm Jen Whitmer, and I am really excited about my guest today, Tina Asher. She is our Monday Mentor today. Tina spent years in the mortgage and finance industry and then made a shift herself. And she has specialized in really helping people take those leaps in their mid-career. And I think about leadership so much. We talk about leadership here. And that is when there's so much like, oh, what do I do? You feel like it's so like angst filled. And she just helps people move through that into some really amazing leaps. So Tina, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. This is fun.
I'm so glad to be here. So Tina and I met actually at a women's leadership, women's networking group here in St. Louis. So she is local with me, which is very fun. That doesn't always happen. And so we chatted at lunch over the idea of I'm not a lefty and she was. So she sat on the other side and we had a really great conversation. I was like, I have to have you on Monday Mentor because I just hearing a little bit of your story at lunch and how you got here, I think you're going to be so helpful to the people. So tell us a little bit about how your leadership journey, like how did you start and how did you get here?
Absolutely. Well, first off, thanks for having me. And I was instantly attracted to you because you knew people well enough to know that the left-hander needs their space at the table. So that's awesome. My journey was really, I had a very successful career in the mortgage and banking industry, and I loved it. I had a lot of great successes and a lot of great friendships and mentors in that line of work, and kept elevating my career over time. And then eventually there was an acquisition that happened. And although I had survived many, this one I did not. And so I was in a place of being unprepared for what my next chapter was. And so I did a lot of heartfelt soul searching during that time, as most of us do. And I realized that my heart and my desire was to move on from that corporate position. And now I specialize in helping mid-career professionals elevate their career. And it's just been a passion and a joy.
I love that. And one of the things I really appreciated when we were talking about your story is you moving from this place of like you survived acquisition. I think lots of people experience that like, am I going to make it? And then it's okay. And am I going to make it? And then it's okay. And then you don't. And so what does it, just give us a feeling of what does it feel like in that place to know how to get out of that place? Like, what does it feel like when you're like, oh, I didn't survive this time? What are some of the things that go through your mind?
You know, I think many of your listeners can relate. There's an emotional roller coaster that you go through. There's feelings of relief that now, okay, I'm out of the stress point. But more often or not, it's, man, I didn't make the team. You know, you feel like so, like, wait,
yes.
And at the end of the day, they always say it's a business decision. It's not personal. And, I even write this in the book. It is personal. It's personal to people's families and everybody around you. And I can just remember having conversations with people that I worked with, and it was just, they had their own roller coaster of emotions, the ones that did stay and the ones that didn't. And so it's a challenge. It's just like the change curve, right? You go through anger, emotion, fear, and all of those things.
Yeah.
And the excitement for next chapter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things I'm always trying to help people realize is that those emotions are normal and natural. Like those aren't things to like put off to the side. Some of us have a tendency to be like, oh, my emotions are over here in this pretty little box and I'm not going to touch them. But actually what brings freedom is recognizing, oh, I'm in this roller coaster. I am feeling all of these things at the same time. Yeah. And as you said, also, sometimes the people who stay have that survivor's guilt feeling. Yeah. And they're like, oh, and it's all this kind of tension, and all of that is really normal. That just means you're human. Yeah. So what are some of the things that you help people when they're in that mid-career space before they've survived a couple or before they've not survived one? What do you help people do to recognize how to make a shift? When is it time? What do you do in that space?
I think some of the benefit that I've gained from all of this is learning to live in the present instead of chasing after things,
Ooh,
right? So our high
tell me
achievers
more.
want to, yeah, our high achievers, and I was one for a very long time. It's we're go, 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 right? What's the next thing? What's the next thing I can accomplish? What's the next goal I can hit? All of those. And I work with a lot of high level executives that are in that boat too. They're very successful with what they do. They get the task done and they're very quick about it. And yet sometimes those relationships then suffer, or
Mm.
they're missing the moment that's teachable. And I think you and I at that business women's luncheon had the conversation. We don't win or lose, we win or learn. Win
Oh, yeah.
or learn, right?
Mhm.
That's one of
Yeah.
the key things. And it's like our duty is to not stay stuck. And
Mhm.
when people come to me, that is typically what I see is they're stuck. And what happens when you're stuck? I talk about my daughter, she got stuck in a snowstorm. How do you get unstuck? You have to take action. You either have to press the
Mhm.
gas pedal and then the wheels spin. You don't
Yeah.
make any traction. So you learn, you're not losing, you're learning, okay, that didn't work. So now what can I do? And then you have to take the next action, and that is ask for help. And
Yeah.
asking for help is not a weakness, right? It's a strength.
Totally. Yeah, it reminds me when we think about feeling stuck, we're often in that, there's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn when we sense danger. We're in that freeze mode. We don't recognize that we're in the freeze mode because it just feels like we're doing our normal thing, but actually we feel a little frozen. This weekend, so I was on a retreat this past weekend with a group of speakers with my speaker coach, and my speaker coach lovingly invited me into doing a cold plunge, which meant I went from a hot tub at 105 into a feed trough of ice water. Was like,
I
this is
love it.
crazy, this is crazy, this is crazy. And I was stuck in that hot tub, even though I don't actually like hot tubs either. It was like, the anticipation of it. And that's where sometimes we feel frozen in that space, like I can't move from the space because it's comfortable,
Yes.
even though it's painful. It feels comfortable because, and how do I get out? I needed some help. I
Yes.
needed that invitation, and her coaching me, because she'd been doing this for a little bit. This was extra besides speech coaching. She'd been doing this a little bit, just like, here's what it's going to feel like, and just gives me that help. And I think that's what we as coaches help people see, because sometimes you don't recognize that you're stuck,
Right.
and you're like, how do you help people when they come to you and they're like, am I stuck, or do I need to make a change? Do I need to stay here? Like, how do you help people discern that?
That's a great question. And that's I've become really more selective on who I work with, because as
Mhm.
we all know, there's a lot of coaches out there and there's a lot of really great ones, and they all have different experiences. So, when you first start a business, you're, oh, I can help this person, I can help that person. And what I found is people tend to say they're stuck, but they don't want to do anything about it. They like that
Mhm.
warm, cozy space. They
Yeah.
they say they don't, but if they really, that was kind of me. I was stuck. I didn't really know. I was stressed. I didn't really know how or if I wanted to get out
Mhm.
until I was forced to. So this is a common thing that I find with people. So there are a lot of questions that I'll ask them, on where exactly are their pain points. I have a 5-step process I take them through if they hire me, and we go through initially foundationally, let's declare where we're at, what's working, what's not, why are we? Because the grass isn't always greener. It's not always a matter of making a move. It's how can I level up my career? Maybe
Mhm.
it's the relationship with my boss isn't as strong as it could be. Maybe it's I'm not managing my team as effectively as I could. And a lot of times it's because they're not, again, staying present and
Mm.
listening, right? Being silent and listening is a different leadership skill that very few leaders have accomplished well with
Yeah.
this fast moving pace of everything going on. I think COVID's kind of lended a little bit of a hand to that, and we've
Mhm.
had to repurpose a little bit. But I think the biggest thing is declaring where we're at and then figuring out what it is we really want. And is there an opportunity for us to make that happen in the environment you're at? Because
Mm.
that's the best place. You've already got your credibility and your value built at the place you're currently at. So can we do some minor tweaks with management relationship, getting you ready for that next promotion that you keep getting passed over for. Why is that really happening? What
Yeah.
can we do to build your confidence and your mojo up so you can be better and do what your talents really are?
Yeah. I think you've said so, like, there's so many nuggets. I just like want to like pull out so many things. And one of them is making a leap doesn't necessarily mean you change organizations. Like that doesn't necessarily mean what it is, but identifying why you're stuck in that place is key. And sometimes we're afraid to pull back the curtain because we don't know what we're going to find. And that fear of the unknown is really scary. And I think that's what's so valuable having a coach with you. It's like, oh, I don't have to pull that curtain back by myself, because not only will they help ask me those clarifying questions about what is the issue. You mentioned managing your team effectively, relationship with your body, like you mentioned all these things, but then you've got a coach to walk by you and help you build confidence. I say all the time, confidence is a skill, not a feeling. And so we can build that with people when we know what the problem is. I think Einstein is the one who said, if you had an hour to work on a problem, he'd spend 50 minutes figuring out what the problem is and 10 minutes on the solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so much of what you do is helping people figure out, okay, why am I stuck? And that's really hard to do on your own.
Mm-hmm.
You can get a certain way. Kim Kalp says that you can't tell what color your ketchup is when you're inside the ketchup bottle. You can't read the label.
Yeah.
And that's a really important piece that you're helping people with. You said something else that I think was so valuable, and now it's totally left my mind. I can't remember it now. I'm so sorry. You said something else that was so important.
Well, to your point, the discovery phase, when we first get on there, a lot of people they don't really spend the time to really pour out and ask themselves those questions, let alone write them out. And do, I mean, there's work they'll do before we ever have our first session, just to really for them to get in touch with what's really going on. And then when we hit our session, we can hit it running. And I love to share that, I'm, or you or whoever is their coach, is an unbiased perspective. Let's reframe your thinking so that when you go home, you're a better spouse, you're a better parent, you're a better neighbor, you give to your community differently because you used someone else unbiased in a confidential setting to say, the way you address that with your team, what if it sounded different? How would that look? We kind of reframe that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And Ryan is saying it's really challenging to self-diagnose when you're stuck. It is. It's really hard. And it's not a skill we're supposed to be able to do. I think people are like, I should be able to figure this out. Actually, no, we're wired for community and we all have blind spots, and we need support through the blind spots, through coaching, through tools, all kinds of different things that can help us through that. I now remember what I was going to ask you, because one of the things I think you said that was so valuable is that we like to rush through it. We're not staying present. And I think sometimes we don't stay present long enough to figure out what the problem is because it gets uncomfortable. It's a lot easier to then be like, okay, well, what's the next financial goal? And what's next, rather than what is presently happening right now? How do you help people with staying present at where they are?
It's a challenge because, again, a lot of the people that are seeking the change are high achievers. So they are constantly goal setting and planning. And if you fail to plan, you don't hit your goal and all that.
Every high achiever is raising their hand right
now.
Yeah, totally. I want to set the goal. I want to meet the goal. I want to crush the goal.
And so it's just a matter of stopping and pausing and saying, okay, what would you do to celebrate that? It doesn't mean we need to take a 10-day cruise, although that'd be nice. Right. But if I like, a piece of dark chocolate and I don't usually eat it, eat dark chocolate, celebrate something, but recognize, what you've just accomplished. I find myself in that trap too. It's just, oh my gosh, the coulda, shoulda, woulda, right? We could be doing more. We could be doing that. And then when you sit and you reflect on, wow, I've done this and I've done that and I've done this and that, and then it's a celebratory thing. And so really focus on making sure people turn to what makes them happy, even for the slightest second, and to take that and then to acknowledge it with someone else.
Yeah. There's so much power in a pause in so many different ways. To pause to figure out what's wrong, but also when we pause to celebrate, it transforms the way our brains look at what we've accomplished. And it actually is part of creating confidence. It's a piece of self-efficacy that says, I've done it before, I can do it again, like, oh, I did that thing. And it puts it deeper within our bodies, not just because we often, high achievers, people who like the future, raising my hand, we forget that we did that stuff because we're so focused on what's next. So I think that's a powerful role that celebrating does, like even just pausing to honor it, like even just recognizing. I mean, I also love dark chocolate, and a 10-day cruise would be fun. But just saying, yeah, I did this. And I'm curious, because you do work with a lot of women, how hard is that for women to say, yes, I did this? Because I think sometimes we're conditioned to this humble, don't do your thing. Do you find that that's struggle for them, or where is the struggle in pausing to honor their?
Actually, it's more with the men, I'm finding, because
Interesting.
there's a pride thing. So in right now, my balance is more men than women, but
Okay.
it ebb and flows. And then other times it's more women than men. So, but it's funny because it's like, I don't have time to do that. I don't deserve to do that. I think women, it's more of a deserving thing, right? They
Yeah.
feel like it's not, I don't deserve to do that. Everybody needs me, and that whole people pleasing thing. So I think it just depends. And, it's just a matter of, why are you not taking on yourself? Because men, I think, have an imposter syndrome sometimes heavier than a woman does. We all have it, right? But I think
Totally. We all 100% have it.
and they just don't want to admit it. And it's like, okay, where's that coming from? And that's where we get the vulnerability, because until we break down, we don't break through, right? So until we get to the place of
Say that again. Say that again.
until we break down, we don't have breakthrough. It's just common knowledge.
Yeah. And it's such an uncomfortable place to do, because breakdown is uncomfortable. And I think sometimes we fear pain and discomfort and vulnerability so much, we miss the opportunities that are in front of us. And I think that's something that is, I think, continually helping people through that, and my own continue helping myself through that with my coaches, because of the same thing. Like, we are doing the same work that we're helping our clients through in so many ways. Okay. Again, I just looked at the time. Every time it's so like, oh my gosh, I'm just so enjoying this conversation. So I would love for you to tell the people just what's kind of one tip or challenge you have for them, and where can they find you besides grabbing Tina's book, which you can get right here. What are some ways that you can help them, and how can they find you?
I think stripping away assumptions. We all know assumptions are not good. The common thing that I like to have people do is be the sponge, right? When you're a new day at work, your first day at school, any of those days, you're in this curiosity phase of learning and absorbing and doing all of that. You may have policies and procedures that have to be admitted to your team, but take the time to listen. Don't assume they understand it. Don't assume they know it, and they don't learn the same way. Through several of the assessments that we do together, they'll understand what is the ideal working environment for that individual, not the team. What is that ideal workplace for that, and how to manage them and how to mentor them. And that's different for every person. So just don't assume, and ask questions is the biggest tip I could say.
I will get on board with that all day long. Like asking questions. And one of the things that I've been working on a new keynote about asking questions. And one of the things that I keep coming back to is that highly empowered teams start with self-aware individuals. Like, you can't work on a powerful team if you don't know yourself. And that is what you're talking about. It's like, what works for you might not work with other people. And so ask the question to figure it out. Like, right. That's the way forward. Okay. So tell the people where to find you.
Okay, so you can reach out if you'd like to get a free newsletter once a month with some tips and different ideas on how to build you up, as my company name is. It's Build You Up. It's build and then to use. It gets a little crazy. BuildYouUp.net. But go there. You can get the newsletter. You can also schedule a free discovery or strategy call. Let's just see if we're a fit. See if there's some tips that I can just give you individually on what you might be struggling with. And you can find my calendar link on the website.
Great. Wonderful. And I dropped that in the chat so people can find that in the comments as well. And you can grab Tina's book, but BuildYouUp.net to use. See, now you'll remember. You'll remember how to find it.
Yeah.
Tina, thank you so much for your time and willingness and sharing with us today. I so appreciate it. Everybody, are we following you on LinkedIn? Is that where you are? Are you Facebook?
Yes, follow me on LinkedIn. That's great. And I love what you're doing. You're inspiration, Jen. So thank you so much for all of the different guests that you have. And yes, you can follow me on LinkedIn. And again, just reach out if you have any questions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tina. I so appreciate your time. Thank you for coming to Monday Mentor. I hope you've got some nuggets. I would love for you to share this with your nugget. I am super, like, the thing that keeps coming back to me is that we have to break down before we break through. Like, it's just such a good nugget. So thank you for being here today, and we will see you all later. Bye.
Thanks.